It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and the show is brought to you by CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps the current business you have right now wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Well, CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail, coffee, and food carts and kiosks that money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. You go to cart-king.com, you check out their designs, you pick one that applies to your business. They'll custom design it for you, custom build it for you, and they'll ship it worldwide. 877-986-7771. Okay. We got a great show today for you. We've been talking about this all week on Facebook and stuff like that. The movie is called The Creepy Line, okay? And it's a creepy movie. It's not a horror film. It's a documentary by Mathew Taylor. Mathew Taylor is the guy behind Clinton Cash, too, by the way. So the guy's got a great body of work behind him. I can definitely recommend this film, The Creepy Line. Mathew Taylor, are you there?
Hey there. How you doing? Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wish we could meet under better circumstances, you know? Tell us about yourself before we get into the film. Who is Mathew Taylor?
Well, you know, I'm a filmmaker, and I like to do a number of things, but, you know, I'm a big fan of technology. I've been following technology my whole life. I'm comfortable around a motherboard. And, you know, I watched the rise of Google and Facebook in my younger years, and it was really awesome, the things they were doing and connecting people and bringing information from all over the world to our fingertips. And in the last couple of years, there's some things that have been quite concerning. So I decided to direct a film, and I worked with Peter Schweitzer and Jordan Peterson and a number of other people and Dr. Robert Epstein to make The Creepy Line.
And how'd you come up with the name, The Creepy Line?
Well, you know, that was a creation by Eric Schmidt. In 2010, he was doing an interview where he said the Google policy is to go right up to the creepy line but not cross it. And we felt that was a very, very strange choice of words and also a great title for a very accurate description of how Google functions.
Yeah, and when I saw that part in the film, they're actually talking about implanting devices in people's brains. And that's when he says, well, we're not going to go that far yet. You know, but in some ways, we kind of have these phones, these smartphones implanted in our hand, you know?
Well, absolutely. Look, this is a company that specializes in surveillance platforms. I mean, you know, in the classic days of Silicon Valley, you had companies that made computers like Apple, or you have Microsoft, which made Windows or Office. These new companies from Silicon Valley, they're here to surveil us. Gmail, Google Maps, Android. These are surveillance data collection platforms. And unlike Apple and Microsoft of the past, which sell products, to Google and Facebook, we are the product. Our data is the product to advertisers, governments, and in some instances, law enforcement.
You know, I'm a private investigator, right? And I've always said, ever since I stumbled upon Facebook, there's no other database that I have, and I have access to Social Security numbers, all kind of stuff, you know, criminal records, all kinds of things. But there's no database that I can subscribe to that's only for professionals, for collection agencies, for PIs, for law enforcement, that will give you a list of people's ex-friends. Like on Facebook, you know, you become friends with somebody, and then you become enemies with them, and you have to block them. And that list of blocked people, that would be so valuable to me as an investigator. Who are all of Mathew Taylor's enemies that he's had to block? Those are the people I want to talk to from investigating you. Now, but that information, that database, isn't available to me or any other investigator that I know, and it would be extremely valuable. Now, why do you think that is?
Well, this is their engine. This is how they monetize. I mean, that information that these systems collect with Facebook and Google, that's how they make all their money. And so, we give these companies more information than we would give any other entity on the face of the earth. We share more with Google than we would with our wives or our spouses or our best friends. They know more about us in a lot of ways than we even know about ourselves, just through how they've collected everything, how they collect even the things we do, where we go when we're not thinking about it. And so, that information, it would be terrible for them if that information was either public or made available to anybody. He who controls all the information can control the entire world.
Yeah, and when you watch this film, The Creepy Line, it really does. We were just talking before we got on the air. It really is discouraging to see how big and powerful this is and how overwhelming this is. The kind of dominance that they have over our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's to a point where I don't think we really realized how deep they had rooted themselves.
Yeah.
We had always seen them as, I get a free email. But the thing is what is the cost of that free email? What does that really mean? And frankly, I think the cost is way beyond the value of this perceived product. We're really kind of like cattle, essentially. I mean, any company that treats their people like cattle, I think is kind of unacceptable. It's totalitarian in a way.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, okay, until I watched the film, though, Creepy Line, earlier today, I figured, yeah, sure, they know, they read my emails, I know they are, they get that predictive email response thing now, that's, which is pretty scary to begin with. But give us an idea how really intense and overwhelming this is. Well,
look, there is, classically in advertising, people are trying to get you to do something. They're persuading you. Hey, but I want you to buy this car. I want you to buy this candy bar. I want you to go to this event. And so you see advertising, and they show people having fun and drinking soda, and you kind of say, oh, I feel like having a soda. With the way these companies work, and Google in particular, is they are actually pushing your opinion based on the data they have collected without you actually knowing. And it's actually inherently built into how the search engine functions. And just to give a very quick example that's actually in the film, is if I'm looking for what's the best dog food and I type that into the search engine, what it does, it has to do two things, two biases. The first bias is that engine, the algorithm, has to search through billions of pages and make a selection, bias number one, of a couple pages. And then it has to do bias number two, which is put them into an order, right? So Purina's first and so on and so forth. And so this is how it typically works. And these are two biases that we usually do want, because otherwise we wouldn't get back results that are very handy. But the question is what happens when you ask that search engine something that has to do with, say, an issue or even a candidate? What's the best candidate? Well, it's going to do those two things. It's going to make a selection, and then it's going to put them in an order, and it's going to do that every time. And because the way the search engine works, we are conditioned to actually think what is at the top of that list is true. So that means that Google decides they like candidate B better than candidate A, and they decide to take the algorithm, and say, hey, let's select this candidate B and put this candidate B at the top, then that's what we see. That's what we get back. Or they can say, hey, candidate A never even shows up. And it's a form of censorship. And so what that can do is that can sway people's opinions towards candidate B and then actually undermine democracy. And this is a private company that could do this to millions and millions of people.
Well, let me ask you this, because, you hear these stories. I've never looked into it personally, but you always hear these stories, people talking about how Google and Facebook, they got their start through grants from DARPA and from the CIA. Have you looked into any of that, and what'd you find looking down that road?
Sure. I mean, there's definitely the stories about how the Central Intelligence Agency and DARPA was interested in a system like Google in the beginning, or how they've invested in these systems. And here's the thing: why wouldn't they be?
Yeah.
I mean, Google has created the greatest surveillance platform on the face of the earth. I mean, it's probably even more sophisticated than the surveillance platforms that the Chinese use on their own citizens. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of similarities between them. And so, if you're the CIA, you want to track down, I don't know, anybody, terrorists, or you want to track down, enemies of the state. Everybody uses Google. Everybody uses phones. Everybody uses all of these platforms, Google Maps and all these things. And they can sit there and pull these platforms or pull your profile up that Google has, by the way, been building on you from all of your habits and everything, and know where you are, know what you're doing, know what you bought immediately.
Yeah, and they know where you've just been 5 minutes ago because it's in our Google Maps or it's in the GPS in our phones and stuff.
Well, and it's even a little worse because you can never use any Google products, and you're using Google products because Google Analytics is in 80 or 90% of websites. So you visit a website, you don't touch Google at all, and they're tracking you on, I'm looking for toilet paper. Boom. They're tracking you on that website.
Yeah, right. And when you use, if you go to a new site, you want to sign up to a new service, something like that, and they say, well, do you want to sign in with Google Plus or do you want to sign in with Facebook? Again, that opens up all kinds of doors of them being able to capture all that information and purchase all that information from Facebook on you. Oh, boy.
It's pretty freaky stuff. I mean,
it really is. But unless you really sit down and watch this film, you're not even getting a taste of what. You got the scary music throughout the whole film too, which doesn't help. Another thing too. In the beginning, very beginning of the film, they show Brian Gumbel and Katie Turek there, and they're saying the internet. What is the internet? And I'm old enough to remember the time before the internet. And just instinctively, I think that things were better in many ways before the internet.
It's a weird scenario to be in because with any innovation, and look, I love innovation, and I actually love a lot of things that these companies did, But I think that every innovation has a dark side. I mean, the splitting of the atom was an amazing moment of unlimited energy, but also unlimited destruction, or the invention of the automobile or the airplane or any of these things, going to the moon. And I think that the thing about the internet is the internet really kind of belongs to all of us. It doesn't belong to just Google. It doesn't belong to just Facebook, And I think that it's really important that, we start understanding that. Remember, this is the important thing. We opted into this arrangement. We signed up for the free email. We signed up for these free services. We took them. I mean, that's kind of the irony here is all of us are now in this uncomfortable position, but we opted in. And so the thing is, how do we opt out? Because now we've given them so much power and so much information that even if we wanted to, you may not be able to. And so at this point in time, to take back the great innovation that is the internet and the great innovation that is communication, all these things, we're really going to have to sit down and start coming up with solutions. And a lot of the solutions available now are for yesterday's companies. We're going to have to come up with solutions that don't even exist anymore because at this point you can't just flip a switch because Google's in communication, telecommunication, transportation, education. They're in the federal government. And so it's going to have to be new, innovative solutions to help fix this, problem.
There's no way to opt out because now it's like a utility company. It's like the phone service, You couldn't be selling your film right now if it wasn't on Amazon and Vimeo.
It's difficult. I mean, it's an interesting scenario to sell a product. You're using Rails created by a company you're criticizing. Obviously Amazon's not in our list of companies but people have criticisms about Amazon for a number of other reasons, and we're focusing primarily on data manipulation and manipulating people's opinions. But Google controls most media buying now. And look, this is only in the last 10 years that this has really been a thing. So in all of human history, in the last 10 years, Google has risen to probably be the largest company of all time when it comes to controlling assets.
Yeah, and think too, it's even less than 10 years where these smartphones have become virtually attached to our hands. You have someone coming in for a job interview today, a youngster, in the middle of the job interview, they're looking at their text. It's an addiction, a very unhealthy addiction, in my opinion. I don't carry one of those phones at all myself. How old are you?
Well, I'm 39, so I mean, I'm the very last tail end of the Generation X. So it's interesting because my generation, we're the skeptical generation, right? And so, I think, I always liked watching Google, but I was never really a fan of Google because in my generation, nothing's free. So when the free thing came, we said, there's always strings attached. The younger generation, took all the free things and tied in and signed up immediately. And so we have this. It's a generational thing as well, and you've seen a groundswell, especially with Facebook and social media. And look, don't get me wrong, I love Instagram. Instagram is a lot of fun. I love photography. It's fantastic. But again, there's a cost. There's a cost to using it. There's a cost of putting your children's photos on Instagram. This is cost of putting your children's identities on Facebook. Because what does Facebook do with your kid's identity? Well, they get together with insurance companies and they rate them, and then they dole out a cost based on your child's social media feed. Now, how is that any different than how the Chinese want to do a social media score? At least the Chinese are coming out and telling you you're a 5. With Facebook, then it's a discrimination against your kid for things they didn't even know about. So this is the new world we're entering into, and we need to really become aware before we get too far.
Yeah, just think, because already, when you go for a job interview or you go to college application, they're looking at your public social media. But who says that they can't change the laws and retroactively go back and say, well, now we want to look at your private correspondence and your private communications that you used off this platform like Facebook? Again, we want to have access to all the people who dislike you, and you blocked and you have fights with this stuff. My God, this is a terrifying time we're living in.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, what if a foreign agent wants to hack and steal all the data? And this happens all the time. I mean, just in the last week and a half, you've had Facebook talk about their, hack or leak of 50 million users. You had Google, talk about, I guess it was Google Plus. They had a huge breach there. They didn't even tell anybody. And that brings us to kind of really the crux about these companies. The thing is that Google and Facebook, whenever you hear about something that they've done wrong, it's always because they're caught. Right. These are not companies that come out and go, oh, there's a glitch in the software. Here's a patch to fix it, right? It's always they're caught. They're caught using Google Street View to suck up all your Wi-Fi and password on all of your information. They're caught spying on your kids' emails. They're caught doing experiments on your kids. They're always caught, right? So the thing is, as a company that is always caught doing bad things, why do we give them so much trust? Institutions and in these kinds of places are built on trust. And there's no reason to trust these companies because they've shown over and over and over again that they are untrustworthy.
Hey, real quick, before we get to a commercial break, well, you don't have to be that quick, but tell us about some of these experiments that you mentioned that they to try to make people get depressed and stuff.
Sure, yeah. Facebook a couple years ago, actually maybe last year, did a number of things where they can identify depressed teenagers. So they wanted to see the effect of negative news stories on depressed teenagers. And, some of these teenagers, maybe did harm to themselves. That is a unethical and despicable way to treat your customers. And again, because their customers are like cattle. Any company that treats their customers like cattle, I mean, that's a totalitarian entity. Apple doesn't do that. Apple may have standards to say, oh, hold the phone differently, with Steve Jobs reference a couple of years ago. But the thing is that they still want to sell you a great product and will still treat you with respect. Facebook is going to take you and experiment on you to see how you'll react, and that's completely, again, it's just completely unethical.
Yeah, just imagine. They were feeding people negative news feeds and negative stories to see if we would get depressed over it, see if they could manipulate our mental health. And that's not a crime?
Yeah.
That's not a crime? That's not something they should have a congressional investigation over? Just amazing.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And they say, hey, you opted in. You took free services.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got to take a commercial break. We're with Mathew Taylor. The film is called The Creepy Line, and I can't recommend it enough. You can find it on Amazon and Vimeo right now. But also, too, there's a couple of screenings in San Diego November 1st and also in Chicago November 14th. And I cannot recommend this film to you enough. We'll be right back with more of Mathew Taylor and The Creepy Line after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Check out CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services, like let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, CartKing.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, CartKing.com. Please visit today at CartKing.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing, and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subhashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subhashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with director, writer, filmmaker Mathew Taylor. The film we're talking about is The Creepy Line. You can check it out on Amazon. I have a link in the Opperman Report bookstore already. But you can go see it in person in San Diego November 1st and in Chicago on November 14th. Now, we were talking before about they become so. Everyone uses Facebook to communicate. They run their businesses through Facebook, but at any time they want, they can censor you, and they could suspend your account and make you go 30 days without communicating with people. Where now it's almost like a public utility. Like they can't just shut off your telephone service, if they don't, if the phone company doesn't like what you're doing on your phone. But Facebook can shut you down. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I mean, look, we have handed these companies, all of the kind of the foundations of what makes our economy function.
Right.
Again, a lot of places are using Facebook. A big one is, with Facebook might censor you, but with Google, they just have to move you to page 2. And by changing search, that can completely destroy your business because only 10 to 15% of people may go to page 2. And so those rankings on Google have become absolutely critical. So if you're a coffee shop and they don't like you and they move you to page 2, your business could completely be obliterated. And the question is, who gave Google and or Facebook the right to completely tank your business based on, and by the way, there's no customer service.
Right.
You can't call them up and say, hey, what's going on? Again, this is not Apple or Microsoft. There's no Genius bar. There's no number to call. If they want you to disappear, or they want to shut your website down, or they want to move your business to page 2, or they want to cut off your comments, they can just do it. And there's literally nothing you can do, and there's nobody you can call. And, it puts us all in a position where, if we go outside of the bounds of whatever their nebulous kind of rules are, which we don't know, then, you're gone. They disappear you.
And in the film, The Creepy Line, you give some examples of that. We don't even know how many sites have been blacklisted or quarantined by Google. What can you tell us about that?
Well, Google has these lists, and one of their lists is the quarantine list. The quarantine list is a list of websites Google doesn't want you to visit. And, how do you end up on the list? What's on the list? There are millions of websites on this list. And what happens is people go, well, you know what? I'm going to go use another search engine. I'm going to use Yahoo. But guess what? Guess what Yahoo references when you search on Yahoo? It references Google's quarantine list. So that's how they can actually block your website on other platforms. And it could be for anything. And they could block. And here's the thing about Google. When Google unified its login a couple of years ago, what that meant was if they blocked you from one part of the Google account, they block you from all of your Google accounts. So that means if they hit you on YouTube, that could take your mail out, your calendar, anything that your Google sign-in, your Gmail sign-in allowed you to sign in, it's all of your services. So if your service, your calendar, your email, your YouTube, and all these things are your business and one gets nicked, they all get nicked. And guess what? Who are you going to call? There's nobody. And honestly, it could be demonetized. They could just make you disappear. So it's a really scary proposition that a bunch of nameless people that I don't know who they are or what their motives are have that much control. It used to be I make a better espresso and I have a better location and I'll get more foot traffic and people will come in and I got to compete. And now you just have to bow down to the whims of these companies to get ahead. And it's not, it doesn't stir up any kind of good competition. It's not good for the economy. It's only good for Google and or Facebook.
Yeah, the audience knows. My first YouTube channel, the Opperman Report YouTube channel, just one day just got shut down. And then more recently, my bigger channel that, we've rebuilt it back up again, they just demonetized me, again, with no explanation, no one to contact. Like you said, I was able to remonetize it, but it's a fraction of what we were making before. So, I also have a theory, and I've done a couple of shows about it. And it's, I'm jokingly saying that YouTube makes you go crazy, okay? And because when you're you're watching YouTube channels, or let's say you're watching something, let's say you're watching about the Clinton cash, right? And then, okay, the next thing they suggest to you is, well, what went on down there in Mena, Arkansas with the cocaine smuggling, all that stuff like that. Bill Clinton was down there. But then they'll start taking you down the road even further and further until ultimately, you're looking up stuff about flat Earth and two suns and Nibiru and all this kind of stuff because this is what they're suggesting to you. And then so you're at Thanksgiving dinner and 1 minute you're talking about Clinton cash and the next minute you sound like a lunatic talking about the flat Earth. You know what I'm saying?
So, yeah, I mean, look, they remember we give them all this content and they can arrange it any way they like. They can remember their whole job fundamentally is to sell us to advertisers, right? And so, how you show things to people they react certain ways and they do certain things. And I mean, it's like a giant, it's just like a rat in a Skinner box. They are conditioning us to think the way they want us to think. And you may start with this thing, and that gives them some information, but they'll know how to string those videos along to lead you to where they want you to go. And you don't have a choice unless you walk away from it. And even then, if you walk away with it, you most likely have your phone in your pocket. So good luck.
Yeah, and even we said before, I can't walk away from it, and you can't walk away from it because you got to sell your movie, and I got to sell my show. It's overwhelming, Now, but now there was a study done. You had a psychiatrist in the film who did a study in using Australian candidates and how they were able to manipulate those results. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So the backbone of the film is made up of data from Dr. Robert Epstein out of San Diego. And what he did is he took interest in Google when his website was shut down, and Google contacted him and told him that it was shut down. But he found that it was shut down on Safari and Firefox as well, and he thought that was odd. So he started researching into Google. And then beyond that, he wrote an article, hey, could Google sway an election? And the next day, Google actually shut him out of Google.com. Being the actual search engine, he could not access it. And so he decided to do some experiments and see, how does this work? And what he did was he decided to say, look, if you put these search returns from the search engine into an order that favors one thing over another, will it sway people's opinions? And he decided to do it with the two candidates from the Australian, I think it was the 2010 Australian presidential election. That way, the people in the experiment would have no bias towards one or the other because they don't really know anything about them. And he built a search engine that works just like Google, and he took a number of participants, and he made 3 groups. And group number 1 was going to see only pro-candidate A, and group number 2 was only going to see pro-candidate B, and group number 3 was the control group, which was just a bunch of mixed up, results that were random. And so he randomly put people in these 3 groups. So when when group 1 saw all 10 results, returned pro Gillard, he figured, they would shift 2-3%. But what he found in the first experiment is they shifted up to 48% towards whichever candidate was given the bias within the search results. And he thought it was a mistake. So he went back and did it again, and he found that they could shift them even more. And then he found if you actually swapped out one of those biases with a pro from the other candidate, you could actually mask the bias. And he actually got it to the point where he could mask the bias to 100% of the participants so nobody could see the bias. And he was actually able to get shifts up to 80% in some demographics. So they took this experiment and then did it again in the Indian election in 2014, which was a real election. It's the largest election in the world. It has a massive, massive pool of voters. There's multiple candidates. And again, they were getting 40% shifts, 50% shifts, depending on the bias in the search returns. And then he took it to the 2016 U.S. presidential election and for about 6 months, he kind of tracked that election without Google really knowing to see if there was, sway towards one candidate or the other. And he found that, in fact, Google was swaying the returns in searches toward one candidate over the other. And so this was the results of his research, that Google can, in fact, move votes towards one candidate or another candidate, which ultimately undermines democracy. And I believe he just came out with an article that said that Google could potentially sway up to 12 million votes in this midterm that's happening in a little under a month. And so that was his research, and that is what we basically show in the film, how it works. And it's extremely terrifying, because this is a company that is not only going to start picking elected officials, but they also are the largest lobbying presence in Washington to lobby the candidates that they, in fact, picked during the election. And there's no way for us to see it. It's entirely invisible.
Yeah, we know 100% that it's possible for them to cherry pick candidates that they want, and they can do this. And we know that they can even pick companies and put the companies and make a small company the biggest leader in their field. We know it's possible that they can do this. But we're going to think, but they're telling us, well, no, but we're good guys. We're not evil. Do no evil is their logo. Right? So, but the same people telling us, no, we're good guys. We're not going to do this. When a guy talks about it, they shut him down. And he can't even log on to Google.com. He gets an error message saying there's no server. So these same people, he exposes them, and then they do to him just like what he says can be done. They make this guy a non-person.
Absolutely. I mean, look, they are building the largest censorship engine in the entire world. I mean, to an extent, if you take all of the bad people in history that ran totalitarian governments through the force of the state, they have achieved the force of the state, or they've achieved actually the control that these historic figures wanted, but they did it without using shock troopers, and they did it without using the might and the fist of the state. And we all opted in. We all signed up for the agreement. They took control of everything. They control what we do, what we see, where we go. They sway our opinions all the time. And they are basically a government with no accountability to the people. Because here's the thing. People say, the government can step in and regulate. The founding fathers designed this country and our government to be inefficient by design. I mean, that way the government couldn't do anything crazy. These companies are not inefficient. They're full of very smart people. They have a very distinct worldview. And they have, with leaked documents that have come out of videos lately, they want to push that worldview out onto the people that use the product. And so when our government steps in to say, hey, let's regulate, our government doesn't even have an idea what they're looking at. And frankly, there's whole parts of our government sitting on Google servers. So we have a real problem with the government's ability to even if you wanted to go in the pro-regulation route, these regulatory maneuvers are antiquated compared to how quickly these companies can adapt to anything that Washington throws at them. So it's going to have to be a very different solution to solve this issue.
Yeah, what Senate committee in their right mind is going to stand up against Google when they control their fate? When Google can have all negative results when you search their name, you'd be an idiot. Plus, you're getting campaign donations from them on the other end. So they got the carrot and the stick. And we saw in your film, we saw with our own eyes Zuckerberg lying to Congress when they said, well, how do you plan on making money from all this, Mr. Zuckerberg? And he says, well, we sell ads. But he doesn't say we're selling all your information. We spy on you. Oh, man.
And the thing is that I think it's very important that people understand that a company like Google or Facebook, they do not respect borders or laws. They see themselves as above that 19th century idea of boundaries. And, they are a global entity. They are a utopian entity that says, this idea of America and Europe and all these things, it's an antiquated system. They want to connect everybody. They want to control all the information. And our laws are just kind of an irritation to them. Something that, look, we can do all these things. We can experiment on all these people. And if we get caught, we'll just pay the fine because that's, we'll write a $25 billion check. No big deal. So all of the punishment and all the kinds of things that we used to do to corporations, big oil, and these kinds of guys, they don't work. And they won't work. So we have to come up with the first thing to do is to stop using some of these products. Stop giving them our information so freely.
Yeah, but even you say in the film, like even if I go to a website and I have a OppermanReport.com domain email address, it still goes through the Gmail system. There's so much they still control it.
It does, but there are ways to begin to reduce it. I mean, look, the EU has taken measures just to deal with it. Now, I'm not entirely a fan of some of their measures, and I think some of them are actually kind of in the vein of what I'm saying is like if we move too quickly and we move too rashly, we can actually cause extreme damage. And so again, we are going to have to come up with new solutions. In this country, we haven't started the conversation at all, and that's really what this film is about. This film is to get people aware, to have them start talking, to have them stop using things like Gmail, to stop using things like Android. Even if you do that, that gives them less. There's no solution for Google search right now. Google search is the best. I'm not here to say that the products don't work. In fact, they work amazingly. They work so well. They work better than the Central Intelligence Agency. They work better than our own government. They work better than anything in the world. That's part of the issue. And so I think that, we have to start becoming aware. We have to start becoming more skeptical, and we have to start looking for alternatives. We have to talk to our lawmakers and have them, start taking this more seriously and start thinking more into the future versus, antitrust. It will work in some instances, but it won't work in the bigger picture.
No, because the mechanism is there to data mine all this information. So someone's going to, whoever has control of it is not going to give it up, or anybody who wants that control is not going to be a good guy for our benefit in any way. But and how do we give it up? How do we give up this addiction when it's fun? It's fun to be on Facebook. You flirt with the pretty girls and stuff like that. You get a like. You put up a picture. People like it. Back and forth. You debate. They show everybody how smart you are because you're debating people and arguing people. This is an addiction that's not being treated, and it's never going to be treated because it doesn't serve. Whose interest does it serve to cure this addiction? No one's. Ours, you and me, but not these people that control us.
No, absolutely not. I mean, we are constantly looking at the screens and absorbing all the information. And look, a lot of it is really cool. A lot of it's great. You know what I love? I love audiobooks. I think they're fantastic. I love Wikipedia. These are really cool tools. We can learn a lot of information if used in a certain way. Yeah. But it does come at a cost. At least in the past, when I looked at an advertisement or I looked at something, at least I had the option to say not interested, But the thing about it is that, now with these invisible manipulations, you don't even know. And we just have to start being aware. It's kind of like you said in the beginning, we're all kind of aware that they're watching and collecting our information, but no one's aware to the extent. No one's aware to the, how far it goes. And here's a big thing. Again, if you break up a Google, what does that do to the economy? They are in everything. They are in every single thing in the world. They're in, again, transportation, communication, education, government. It's going to be very tricky to pull them. It's like a cancer. To operate, it's going to require extreme skill and a lot of caution.
It might be too late. You don't think it's too late?
It could be. But again, what I like about technology is that there's always something new. There's always somewhere to go. There's always a new thing. Back in 2007, in January when Steve Jobs walked out on that stage and held up the very first iPhone, that was totally, absolutely out of this world. It was different. It changed. That moment created, things like Uber and all these kinds of things that are part of our world. And that's a mere 11 years ago. And so, it's never too late. There's always innovative people being born every day. There's the entire global economy. So Google and Facebook, they're not the first giant entities, and they won't be the last giant entities. But for any giant entity that deals in telecommunication and communication information, these kinds of precautions need to be put on all of them.
Okay, we're talking to Mathew Taylor. He made this terrifying movie called The Creepy Line, and now he comes on here and tries to reassure me. I don't know, man. I'm not feeling much better, but I appreciate it. It's a terrifying movie.
I do my best.
The movie's overwhelming, okay? And I've been traumatized by this movie, The Creepy Line. And you can check it out in person November 1st in San Diego, November 14th in Chicago. Let's take a little quick commercial break. We'll be back with more of Mathew Taylor who really produced a masterpiece here. And I can't thank you enough, man. I really appreciate this movie.
My pleasure.
Very, very good. We'll be right back after these messages.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Check out CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services, like let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, CartKing.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, CartKing.com. Please visit today at CartKing.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing, and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subhashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subhashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. We're here with Mathew Taylor, director, filmmaker. The movie is called The Creepy Line. You can catch it in San Diego coming up November 1st and in Chicago November 14th. It's on Amazon right this minute. You can order it tonight. Now, Mathew, you mentioned in the film how these whistleblowers came out, and they claim that Google and Facebook are targeting conservative content. Has that really been proven?
I mean, here's the thing.
I heard you on Glenn Beck, too.
Always,
yeah, there was a big emphasis on that on Glenn Beck. Yeah. Is there anything to that?
I'm one of the first people to always be kind of leery of assigning political motives to these things. But, at the end of the day, you can look about how the people in Silicon Valley lean. They're a very left-leaning group. You can look at how they donate money. You can see pictures of Eric Schmidt with his staff badge at Hillary's election night party in 2016. And so, you can see the videos that came out about how the Google and the VPs were crying over Donald Trump's victory. You can see how PragerU was demonetized. You can see how people like Jordan Peterson were bumped off of Google. You can look through all the cases, and I think it's more, the proof is more in the culmination of all of them. It'd be one thing if it was just one or two or three. There definitely seems to be more of an emphasis on how they treat people who have a certain voice on a certain side of the aisle in this country. And so, I'm not going to prescribe a particular motive, But the thing is, I would say the proof is in the pudding. If you want to look at the number of people, and here's the thing, there are people who are demonetized in the left as well.
Yeah.
There are people who are shut down. Here's the thing. There are lots of people who are demonetized or censored that we don't even know because they were censored.
Right.
And it's a lot of people, and it could be for anything. It could be for all sorts of stuff. It could be because you were doing gun safety videos. It could be for anything. But I do think that there is there are certain people who Google and Facebook seem to target more than other people, and they tend to be on the right side of the aisle, and they tend to support a certain point of view. Diamond and Silk don't seem like terrorists to me, but ISIS seem to have their webpage operating or their Facebook page operating for a very long time. And so I think that, there seems to be a political motive. I think where it becomes more apparent is in how the search returns come back.
Right.
And so I think that is where, obviously, the film spends quite a bit of time talking about how Google can make it so that one candidate is picked over the other. And in my opinion, that is actually, a more terrifying and more dangerous kind of use of their platform. And again, I don't agree with censorship at all, but, even with people who were demonetized, at least they can say, hey, I was demonetized, and they can try to get it turned back on, or they can fight for it, and they can, get their friends together. With the search returns, you don't know. You have no idea. Getting bumped to page 2, you may not know. Just being bumped to another search page altogether, you may not know. And I think that, in a lot of ways, is more terrifying.
Yeah, just today, I know you've been on a train all day today, but I don't know if you heard that Facebook just shut down 80 pages, like Film the Police and Cop Watch and all these other pages today. So, it is happening, I believe, on both sides. But you're probably right that obviously they were with the Clintons there. We saw them crying. We saw them with their badges.
Yeah.
Now, what about you? Now, you just came out with this film. Have you been targeted? Anything?
I mean, we've had interesting, kinds of activity on because, again, how do you promote a movie on a platform that you're actually against? And again, I'm not, and when I say against, I'm not really against the platforms. I think they're cool. I don't want them to behave this way. I want Facebook to be, it's a great way to keep in touch with, like, random cousins or friends from grade school, that it's kind of an interest. It's a cool way to communicate. And I love Google because, look, we did Google searches to make the movie, to find things, and so I think that I'd like these platforms to operate as they were intended and not be used as weapons. But we have seen some, strange behavior with things we've posted, posting invitations that nobody sees. I mean, I can post a picture of a taco, and I get 100 likes, and I can post an invitation to the creepy line, and no one sees it. And so we have had some, what it seems to be interference. And here's the thing. It's not that I'm not even surprised. I mean, if they didn't interfere with it, that would probably be weirder, to be honest with you.
That's true. That's true. We've only got about a minute left. What do you want to leave us with?
Well, I think that we all should, first of all, should all go watch the movie.
Yes.
But I really think that people should start changing their usage behavior, and they should really think next time they decide to write a password into a login, they decide to sign up for something free. There are some alternatives. Proton Mail is an alternative. And Start Page is an alternative. There are some alternatives. Use iOS. Don't use Android. Things like that. But, this is the time to start thinking about your privacy, your data, your kids' data, and start being more skeptical, everybody.
Mathew Taylor, the film is called The Creepy Line. Matthew, I can't thank you enough, and I want the audience to know that
My pleasure.
Matthew's a really, really cool guy because I screwed up yesterday. I missed the appointment, and he's been traveling all day long, and he gave me this time. So Matthew, you're number one in my book, okay? Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Good night, my friend.
My pleasure. Oh, good night. Thank you.
Okay, Matthew Taylor, The Creepy Line. Okay, check it out at Amazon.com. And you can check it out. It'll be in the Opera Report bookstore. And also, too, you can check out his, what do you call it? They're going to have some screenings. November 1st in San Diego and November 14th in Chicago. Okay? And once again, like I said, really, guy really did me a solid, man. He's been traveling all day long. But he helped me out because otherwise we'd have no content for the weekend. So thank God for Matthew Taylor. Even though we're on different sides of the politics, you know, he's a very right wing guy. You should have heard him on Glenn Beck. Okay, I guess he looked me up a little bit and did a little research on me. One thing I'd like to say though that I didn't get a chance to talk to with Matthew is that you know, they got all this information. Google has all this information. They're tracking every single little thing we do, right? And I've talked about this on the show before. I've done some investigating on YouTube, and there's some really creepy stuff on there, you know, where they sexualize little kids, okay? And it's not pornography, it's not nudity, it's not sex, but there's videos of little kids that are you can see the comments, okay? I'm not going to describe the different things the kids are doing because there are little words you can look up and see this stuff, and I don't want to encourage it. And to the point where some of these videos of little 8-year-old little girls, you got to prove they make it adult content that you have to prove you're over 18 years old in order to view it. So YouTube knows it's sexualizing children. They could easily shut down these sites. They could easily put an end to this. When you watch this film, A Creepy Line, and you see the depths of the information that they have on us, there's so much we didn't get into in this interview. Stuff, and also too, like with Siri and Alexa, just think, when we search for something and they give us 4 choices, okay, we pick the top one we think is the most, but you have a chance to look at the other ones. With Siri and Alexa, they give you one answer. And now with little kids growing up, we're going to think, oh, okay, well, Siri knows everything, Alexa knows everything. It's a terrifying time we live in. I don't think there's any turning back, okay? And this movie's a very creepy movie. It's a very disturbing movie. I'm very depressed. I'm traumatized again by another movie. If you like these shows, you got to go to OppermanReport.com. You got to support the shows, guys, because we're getting to a critical point here where, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this because it's just way too much work, days and days and days of work. And then, I ask for a couple of memberships and I get nothing. Okay, so if you want to become a member, $65, I'll give you 13 months. We're way behind on bills. I had to pay my rent on a credit card. Also, too, if you want to advertise on the show, we got this great sponsor, CartKing.com. Everybody in the jokes, every 5 minutes I got a joke. Hey, CartKing.com, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows the name. Subhash Technosis is an Indian SEO company who knows all about this stuff. I should have him on the show. He's an expert on this kind of stuff. Search engine optimization and how to get your stuff ranked high on Google. But if you want to advertise on our show, get a hold of me at OppermanReport.com. Sponsor the show. If you have an event coming up you want to promote, get a hold of me. We'll put you on the air right away. Also, too, if you want to make a donation, you can go to OppermanReport.com. There's a donate button there. You could donate $5 a month, $10 a month. Or if you just want to try out the member section, you can go to OppermanReport.com, the member section. Just 1 month, $7. It's $6.99. It should be $10. We might have to raise that. But just 1 month, try it out. If we had 1,000 people do it for 1 month, it would pay for months and months and months. I could focus on the show all the time. And it's all this crap I got to do. But thank you so much again, Matthew Taylor, who gave me 2 days. You know what I mean? It's a tough job in his business to get someone to give you an hour of their time. So the guy's traveling around, he's doing book signings, all this kind of stuff. You get 1 hour, and then you screw it up, and he says, you know what, I'll give you an hour the next day. That's a good guy. Matthew Taylor, and the movie is called The Creepy Line, and it really is creepy, man. This is a really good movie. I wish it was on Netflix and HBO, more people could see it, but you can get it on Amazon, and show them some support out there November 1st in San Diego, and November 14th in Chicago. Good night, thank you so much.